Imagine for a second that you are like at the absolute zenith of your career. You've achieved 8 consecutive Billboard #1 albums.
Right, just a staggering level of success.
Exactly. You've sold over 10 million records globally. You are, by every conceivable metric, sitting on top of the world.
Oh, absolutely.
But right there, sitting on your desk, is a mandatory, non-negotiable countdown clock. And, with absolute certainty that when that timer hits 0, everything you've spent your entire youth building it has to be paused.
Yeah, it's a psychological weight that is, it's almost impossible to fully comprehend unless you are actively living it.
I can't even imagine.
You're balancing this peak global dominance with a forced expiration date on your current reality. And that pressure cooker creates a very unique type of artist.
Which is actually the perfect jumping off point for us today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at the globally dominant K-pop group Stray Kids and their brand new mini album, This and That.
It's a fascinating release.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we have a huge stack of sources on the table to help us navigate this, including deep dive press conference coverage and, industry analysis from Star News Korea, Hallyu Press, the Korea Times, Hindustan Times, and Soompi.
It's a comprehensive look at a group standing at a very specific, very precarious crossroads in the global music industry.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack exactly how Stray Kids is navigating their newly cemented status as a quote-unquote mega IP. We're going to explore how they're handling incredibly delicate international award politics, the very real physical toll of their relentless schedule, and of course that looming reality of mandatory military service.
All while stubbornly refusing to play it safe musically.
Yeah, which is wild.
That last point is perhaps the most surprising part of their current strategy. I mean, typically when a musical act reaches that stratospheric level of success, the immediate corporate instinct is to, protect the formula at all costs.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we get into the external pressures, the awards, the military, the injuries, we really need to look at the music itself. Because how they are handling this new album is surprisingly risky for an enterprise of this immense size.
It really is a gamble.
Right. So they're releasing This and That, which is the follow-up to last year's DOIT. And DOIT was the album that gave them their 8th consecutive Billboard 200 #1.
That is a historic streak. And to put that into perspective for you, an analysis by Assumption Women's University researcher, this was cited in the Hallyu Press, noted that Stray Kids has actually surpassed 10 million cumulative album sales.
Wow.
Yeah, that places them in a very exclusive tier of the industry. At this stage, they aren't just a band anymore, They are categorized by financial analysts as a mega IP.
I want to pause on that term for a second, mega IP. Because it's so important for understanding the mechanics of this whole industry. When we say mega IP, we're talking about an intellectual property engine that drives massive economic value. Right, there are hundreds of people, maybe thousands, whose livelihoods, from marketing teams to stage crew to label executives, they all depend on this group continuing to print money.
That's the reality. The K-pop model is highly structured. A mega IP generates revenue not just from streaming, but from physical album sales. Often multiple collectible versions, massive world tours, high-end fashion ambassadorships, endless merchandising.
That whole ecosystem.
Exactly. The financial safety net they provide to their agency, JYP Entertainment, is foundational.
So knowing all of that, you'd think the label and the group would just say, let's do exactly what we did last time. Give us the heavy, aggressive, explosive sound that got us 8 Billboard #1s.
You'd think so, yeah.
But all 8 tracks on This and That were produced by their in-house unit, 3RACA, which is comprised of members Bang Chan, Changbin, and Han. And instead of their usual high-intensity sound, the title track, This and That, is a relaxed, groovy hip-hop track. They intentionally stripped away the rougher elements.
They absolutely did. Changbin explicitly mentioned during their press conference that they took out some of the more unfamiliar, aggressive sounds to make the song easier to approach.
Right.
They were aiming for a chill and cool mood that still carries the intrinsic confidence to try, this and that.
To put this in perspective for you, the listener, it's like managing a massive investment portfolio. When you have 10 million albums sold, you have built a massive safety net. That mega IP status is actually what buys them the risk capital to put out a chill indie-style track instead of a heavy hitter.
Exactly. It buys them freedom.
But still, the risk is real. Why take the chance of changing the sonic identity when the explosive formula is clearly working so incredibly well?
To understand that, we have to look at the artistic philosophy driving 3AHA, particularly as it was articulated by Bang Chan and Han in the Star News coverage. Bang Chan stated very clearly that there are always safe choices. They could have easily brought back their previous high energy.
Sure.
But, as he put it, trying new things is simply more fun.
Which speaks volumes about creative burnout.
Precisely. Han added a crucial layer to this, explaining that if they did the same thing every single time, it would lose interest. Not just for the fans, but for the members themselves.
Yeah, you get bored.
Right. They are actively choosing not to let their massive, record-breaking expectations dictate their artistic choices. They noted that taking a new path brings difficulties and unpredictable variables, but that process of learning is what keeps them engaged as creators.
They are refusing to let the mega IP label turn them into a static product on a shelf. They want to remain artists first. And honestly, that refusal to let external metrics dictate their art perfectly explains how they handled an incredibly tricky, politically charged question at their press conference.
Oh yeah, the Grammy question.
Because defying corporate expectations naturally leads us into how they handle industry politics.
This is arguably one of the most complex PR landscapes any international artist has to navigate right now.
I have to admit, if I were their PR person, I'd be sweating bullets over this. It feels like a total trap. So let's look at the context provided by the Hindustan Times report. It details that DTS, another massive global K-pop group, recently decided not to submit their solo music for the Grammys.
Right, which was a huge deal.
Yeah, and this decision was in response to the Recording Academy creating a separate Best Asian Pop Music Performance category.
To give you, the listener, some structural context here, the creation of this specific category has sparked intense debate within the music business. From one perspective, some argue it provides dedicated, guaranteed recognition for Asian artists who might otherwise be completely overlooked by voters in the general pop categories. It ensures a seat at the table.
But the flip side of that argument is that it inherently marginalizes these artists. It boxes them into a geographical or ethnic niche category, rather than allowing them to compete head-to-head with Western artists for the main pop awards. And to be clear, we aren't here to take a stance on whether the Grammys' new category is right or wrong. We're just looking at the reality of the business landscape.
Right. What's fascinating here is the diplomatic tightrope Stray Kids had to walk. BTS made their decision not to submit based on this new category. And at the press conference for This and That, Stray Kids was asked directly to comment on this exact situation by the press.
Which is such a wild position to be put in. How does a group handle being dragged into another group's boycott without alienating the Western music industry that they're actively touring in, or alienating their peers in K-pop who are taking a stand?
It's a lose-lose scenario.
Totally. If they criticize the Grammys, they risk closing doors in the U.S. market. If they distance themselves from BTS's stance, they risk massive backlash from fans and peers.
It is a minefield. But Seungmin and Hyunjin delivered an absolute diplomatic masterclass. They completely deflected the premise of the question by shifting the entire paradigm of why they make music in the first place.
They didn't even take the bait.
Not even a little.
Yeah.
Seungmin stated that they don't create performances or write songs based on outside opinions or external noise. He emphasized that realizing their music can have an impact motivates them to keep making music that reaches listeners.
And then Hyunjin followed up to seal the deal.
Yeah.
He said that since they debuted, they have never once promoted with awards or chart records as their primary goal.
Right.
He stated flatly that their biggest priority is making their fans, who are known as, stay happy. They took a geopolitical music industry controversy and made it entirely about the intimate relationship between the artist and the fan.
It is a brilliant strategy because it is fundamentally unassailable. I mean, you cannot criticize an artist for looking at a room full of reporters and saying, my only goal is to make my fans happy.
You just can't.
They expertly stepped out of the Asian pop box controversy by essentially saying, we don't live in any box, we live in our studio, and we do this for stay. It reinforces their authenticity while completely neutralizing a hostile question.
Okay, so they can easily sidestep questions about the Grammys and international award politics. But there is one reality no South Korean male artist can dodge, no matter how many Billboard #1s they have or how brilliant their PR team is.
Yeah, mandatory military service.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
The military requirement is the ultimate equalizer in South Korean society, and it is the shadow that hangs over every single major K-pop boy group. South Korean law requires almost all able-bodied men to serve in the military for approximately 18 to 21 months, usually by age 28.
During the Seoul press conference, Lee No, who was born in 1998, making him one of the older members of the group, addressed the military exemption period directly. And I was struck by this, but it's so unusual to hear a pop group at their absolute peak talk so openly and calmly about an impending forced hiatus.
Especially in an industry that relies so heavily on constant momentum and visibility, the fear is always that if you step out of the spotlight for 2 years, the audience will just, move on to the next group.
But Lee No didn't shy away from it. He called military service a natural duty. He said they will fulfill it diligently when the time comes. And crucially, he added that while they haven't discussed the specific logistics of the exemption period yet, like who goes when, they absolutely plan to reunite afterward.
That's huge for the fans to hear.
Yeah, he told the fans directly, please wait just a little longer, we will return soon.
That directness is striking and incredibly strategic. Every K-pop act eventually faces this existential threat. The label invests millions, the group builds massive global momentum, and then the law requires them to stop.
Right.
But Lee No's response, along with Seungmin's perspective on the matter, shows a highly mature, grounded strategy for handling the industry's ultimate time limit. They are actively managing the narrative.
Because if they don't talk about it, the media and the fans will just endlessly speculate, which creates anxiety. Seungmin added to that sentiment by saying they didn't want to lose the happiness of the present by thinking too far ahead. His focus is on doing the best activities they can right now, in the moment.
By acknowledging the military service openly, they aren't letting it be a taboo subject. They are framing it as a pause, not an end.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
It adds this really compelling bittersweet layer to the release of this and that. They are experimenting and having fun with this chill hip-hop sound precisely because they know their time together in this current uninterrupted configuration is finite.
So they have this mature, zen-like acceptance of their future military pause. But you can't be zen about a cracked bone. And that brings us to the immediate physical cost of maintaining this mega IP status right now.
Right, focusing on the present means dealing with the physical reality of the now.
Exactly. This is the side of the mega IP status that rarely makes it into the glossy promotional materials or music videos.
We have a report from Soompi detailing that Seungmin has to sit out certain live broadcasts for this current comeback. We're talking about major, high-visibility appearances like Music Bank, Music Core, station head listening parties, and the Melon Music Wave event.
And the reason? He is undergoing rehabilitation for a suspected stress fracture in his left ankle that was diagnosed way back in March.
Let's contextualize that for a moment. A stress fracture is a serious overuse injury. It isn't a sudden break. It literally means the bone is cracking under the strain of repeated high-impact movement over time.
Think about the last time you, the listener, twisted your ankle. You probably spent 3 days on the couch with an ice pack. Now imagine having a stress fracture being diagnosed in March, and we are now in August.
It's grueling.
But here is the kicker. Despite this fracture, JYP Entertainment confirmed he is still participating in pre-recordings for these music shows and a mini fan meeting. He's just skipping the live broadcasts.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this situation exposes the ultimate duality of the K-pop industry. On one hand, you have the immense, unyielding ambition of global expansion. On the other hand, you have the absolute physical limits of the human body.
I have to push back on the sustainability of this lifestyle. I know the agency's statement noted that they are taking the artist's strong desire to participate into consideration, and I'm sure he deeply wants to be there for the fans.
Of course.
But for the listener who doesn't know, a quote-unquote pre-recording in K-pop isn't just standing at a microphone. It often means doing full high-intensity choreography multiple times at 4 a.m. for camera rehearsals before the actual show.
Yeah.
How sustainable is this model when members are dealing with stress fractures for 5 months and are still expected to power through pre-recordings?
It's a critical observation, and when you look at their broader schedule, the physical demands become even more staggering.
Just look at what they're doing. They just wrapped 5 dates of their Run IT World Tour in Seoul at the massive KSPO Dome. And in September, they aren't just doing a few shows. They're headlining the Stray City Festival across Latin America.
Yeah, that's massive.
We were talking about playing Bogota, Buenos Aires, and Mexico City, sharing the bill with acts like NAXC and Andres Obregon.
The logistics of that alone are mind-boggling. You are talking about Massive time zone shifts, staggering jet lag, constant travel, and high-impact performance night after night.
It's brutal.
The choreography in K-pop is notoriously demanding. To execute that level of performance across continents while managing a stress fracture, it highlights the incredible, almost superhuman physical resilience these artists must maintain.
It's elite athletics. We treat them like musicians, and they are, but they are doing the physical work of professional athletes.
That is a really apt comparison. And the mega IP machine requires constant fuel. Tours, festivals, pre-recordings, fan meetings. The economic engine of a group like Stray Kids is vast and hungry.
Yeah, it never stops.
Balancing the long-term health of the individual members against the immediate demands of that global engine is arguably the biggest logistical and ethical challenge agencies face today.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, and I think it paints a vivid picture of what it actually means to be at the top of this industry. We've seen how Stray Kids is handling their monumental success by actually pivoting away from what's safe.
Yeah, they chose a relaxed, experimental, musical vibe with this and that simply because it's more interesting to them, refusing to let past success dictate future art.
We examined how they navigated the incredibly treacherous waters of Western award controversies, deflecting complex questions about the Grammys and industry boycotts by keeping their focus entirely and smartly on their fans.
We looked at how they're calmly and openly managing the narrative around their inevitable mandatory military service, refusing to let the anxiety of the future steal the joy of their present work.
And finally, we confronted the harsh physical reality of the K-pop machine, seeing firsthand how the relentless demands of global tours, festivals in Latin America, and constant promotion push the human body to its absolute limits, even when dealing with serious injuries.
It really is a masterclass in navigating pressure from every conceivable angle: artistic, political, temporal, and physical.
It really is. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about that mandatory countdown clock at the beginning of the show, the military service that will eventually, inevitably pause everything.
The great interruption that every agency fears.
Right now, it's viewed as this massive hurdle. But as the global music industry continues to evolve, and as the K-pop genre becomes increasingly integrated into the mainstream market, what happens when that clock hits zero? Will the inevitable military hiatuses of groups like Stray Kids break their massive global momentum? Or will this forced pause actually give them the space they desperately need?
Oh, that is a fascinating possibility to consider.
Think about it. Will stepping off this grueling, stress fracture-inducing treadmill for a couple of years give them the life experience, the perspective, and frankly, the physical rest required to evolve? Could this mandatory break be the exact catalyst that allows them to transition from being a corporate mega IP into lifelong legacy artists who transcend the K-pop label entirely?
It reframes the hiatus from a threat into an opportunity for true artistic longevity.
It really does. Keep questioning the media you consume. Look beyond the Billboard charts to understand the mechanics of the industry, and always think about the humans operating inside the machine. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.